Now on KGW News, a devastating crash leaves 7 people dead on I-5. How did it happen? We're talking to those who witnessed the disturbing scene.
Plus, drivers stranded in a landslide on the road to Mount St. Helens learn their cars could be stuck for a year.
What can you do? You either laugh about it or you're going to cry about it.
So what did their insurance company say when they asked for help?
Then, remembering Vanport.
This is a story that's not told, it's not written enough, it's not shared enough.
75 years since the diverse community was wiped out by a flood, survivors pushed to preserve lessons learned.
And the good news for those hoping to catch a show at the Schnitz with a solution to their busted AC.
We start with new developments tonight in that terrible crash on I-5 that killed 7 people and injured several more. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brittany Folkers.
And I'm David Molko. Tonight, I-5 northbound has partially reopened near the crash site about 7 miles north of Albany. Our Alma McCarty checked in with investigators and talked to a witness.
On I-5 north of Albany, near the Marion-Lynn County line, a horrific wreck brought traffic to a standstill. The deadly crash involving 2 semi-trucks and a passenger van happened just after 2 p.m. Oregon State Police confirming 7 adults killed, multiple others injured.
I do drive semi, and I've driven for quite a while, and I've seen a lot of fatalities on the road. Think about the people's families, and it's a sad day for those people.
Phil Price, driving from Alberta to Nevada, saw the immediate aftermath and the officials arriving on scene.
They looked very disturbed, a couple of them. You could see it on their face, emotions over there.
Troopers took their time collecting evidence from the wreckage spread across one lane and the shoulder. Traffic on the northbound side began slowly moving again, with one lane open about 5 hours after the deadly crash, while crews and investigators continued their work here. As of Wednesday night, information remains limited. OSP tells me they'll release more details, including the likely cause and the identities of the victims, after completing their investigation on scene. In Marion County, Alma McCarty, KGW News.
Let's get to an update on an Amber Alert out of Idaho. Police have found one of 2 cars associated with the kidnapping of a 2-year-old boy. Authorities in Nampa, Idaho, that's just west of Boise, say 36-year-old Rodolfo Reyes kidnapped his son Rudy this morning. Now, Reyes does not have custody, police say, and they believe he may be traveling to Oregon. Now, police say they've located the gray Honda Civic they were looking for. They're still on the lookout for a gray Lexus. Its license plate number is on your screen. We're also told Reyes has been known to carry a pistol. He's described as 5'9" with an average build and tattoos on his neck. Contact authorities or the Amber Alert tip line if you spot this Lexus or you have information about the kidnapping.
Investigators plan to use drones tomorrow to start pinpointing the cause of the fire that destroyed a Southwest Portland apartment building. What's left of the May apartments on Southwest Taylor Street continues to crumble, and the area remains fenced off. Today, we visited the shelter where some of the displaced residents are staying. The Red Cross set it up on the University of Portland campus. Many of those impacted don't have a lot of means and lived at the May apartments because they were affordable. In fact, some came there from Blanchet House, the Old Town nonprofit that provides meals and transitional housing. Executive Director Scott Kerman says his team is reaching out.
If we were devastated by a fire like this, we probably have a lot of friends and family that we could rely on, a place to stay that we know that would be safe, and we'd have people at the ready to, give us clothing and money and anything that we need. Well, a lot of people, I bet living in this apartment building don't really have that in their community, and so they rely on us and the generosity of strangers, really, here in the Portland area, who are moved by this event and are going to step forward and help out.
Yeah, the community support needed now more than ever. And another way that you can help, several GoFundMe campaigns are set up. We have links to those at kgw.com.
Let's get you caught up on tonight's other headlines now, beginning with a fire that destroyed 2 buildings under construction in northeast Portland. The call came in around 2 this morning from 36th and Killingsworth. When firefighters arrived, they saw this, the buildings fully engulfed and both eventually collapsed. Now, crews worked to stop the fire from spreading to a nearby home. No word on the cause.
A total of 10 Oregon senators are now ineligible for re-election following their current term. That's after 6 more senators reached 10 unexcused absences on the 13th straight day of a walkout. The next Senate session is on Monday, and there was little indication the two sides will talk much this weekend. Republicans have said that they will challenge in court the measure that bars them from re-election.
And some good news this evening from the Arlene Schnitzer Concert Hall. A temporary cooling unit has arrived, and that means performances of the Oregon Symphony this weekend will go on as scheduled. Now, as we reported, the Symphony had to relocate several shows to the Keller because it was just too hot in the theater. Metro, which runs the Schnitz, will still need to replace their HVAC system, which broke down a few weeks ago, and they say that could take up to 8 months. Well, new at 11 this month marks the 75th year since the deadly Vanport flood. It's Oregon's second largest city and a diverse community when many had few other options. Though over the years, this important piece of history has also faded. Catherine Cook talked to survivors about that flood, about why everyone should remember.
1, 2, 3.
Capturing a moment along a timeline 75 years long. Scroll back to 1948 and you'll see these faces when they belonged to young children, some just toddlers.
I was just 2.5 when the flood came.
When the Vanport flood washed away their homes and wiped out their community.
Vanport is just, I think it's just something we have to never forget.
And yet, so many have. Janice Okamoto was 6 when her family fled that Memorial Day. A railroad dike had just failed, releasing torrents of Columbia River water. The flood leveled rows and rows of homes. At least 15 people lost their lives. 18,000 others lost everything else.
I didn't know we were poor, but we couldn't afford housing anyplace else but government housing.
Vanport was the nation's largest housing project designed as temporary wartime housing. 72,000 people came here from around the country to work in the Kaiser shipyards. There weren't enough homes, so the government built Vanport. After the war, about 20,000 remained. They couldn't afford or simply weren't allowed to live in parts of Portland because they were black, a form of discrimination known as redlining.
Vanport is the classic example of people working together for a common cause.
O.B. Hill was also 6 when the flood destroyed his home.
We were outside playing, and a policeman came by and advised us that the dike had broken. So we ran upstairs and told our mother.
O.B.'s daughter is grateful for the stories and lessons her family is passing down.
It's very important for people to know the history of what happened and just the fact that we have been historically moved around and pocketed.
This is a story that's not told, it's not written enough.
Laura Loforti directs the Vanport Mosaic Festival, an effort to keep the history of Vanport alive.
And we call this memory activism, which is really the act of remembering as an act of resistance. So we feel that often stories, uncomfortable and complex stories like the Vanport stories, are intentionally forgotten.
On this day at Portland State University, a new installation commemorating the flood, its survivors and their stories. It's in the Vanport building, a nod to the university's first name, the Vanport Extension Center. It was built for 220 students who lived in Vanport. If you didn't know that, these survivors and their kids hope you'll learn even more.
Because we haven't forgotten.
The Vanport Mosaic Festival runs through May 29th. Today's event was the first of several planned through Memorial Day. We'll post a link on KGW.com where you can find a full schedule and learn more about this part of Portland history. Brittany.
Wow, yeah. You can't really know where you're going unless you know where you've been. Catherine, thank you so much.